improve your training execution, get you stronger in the gym, improve your daily management of variables. And that's where we can really achieve that goal of seeing body fat loss, but also seeing muscle mass gain. And of course, then if we have the goal of potentially getting on stage, it gives us a really good opportunity to set those baseline skills, make sure that we have a really good day-to-day routine, because being able to kind of like tick those daily boxes and feel good within them is such an important baseline to have. And do is hop on a call with one another and be able to have those discussions, and as I say, give you the opportunity to ask me any questions from there. But this video also gives you a nice little insight as to what the check-in process looks like with coaching as well. As you'll see in the information pack that I've sent across to you, the way that I personally will check in feedback is always via a link video. So your feedback on a weekly basis will look very similar to this, where you'd receive a link video feedback from me, you have a sheet up on the screen, you go through the feedback for the week, you go through your progress photos, your form clips, give you form feedback, and we ultimately then set targets for the week ahead, based on what we need to do to reach our short-term goals, our long-term goals, and ultimately just make improvements all round. Hello everybody, welcome back to the Natural Female Muscle Podcast. I hope that we are all doing very, very well. I hope you're having a wonderful day so far, as always, whenever you are listening to today's episode. This is episode number 57, and today we're going to talk about how to make fat loss easy. And this is going to be applicable for, funnily enough, any fat loss phase. Hello everyone, I hope that we are doing very, very well. I hope you're having a tremendous day so far whenever you get around to watching this video. Welcome to another vlog, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be doing a day in the life and mainly a updated full day of eating. I am actually nearing the end of this specific gaining phase. I've been in this growing phase now for just over 30 weeks, so it's been 30 weeks since I stepped off stage at my last show at the UKDFBA finals. We are obviously on a mission this off season to keep just making as many improvements as I possibly can do. That is my goal as a competitor, and honestly within my goal as someone in the natural bodybuilding space anyways, to just keep growing, keep showing what is possible when it comes to progress as a female athlete when you put all of your efforts into it. It doesn't matter what your genetics are, it doesn't matter what your potential is or whatever it may be, it's about maximizing your potential, and that's what I want to show. So that's the mission we are on, but I am nearing the end of this specific phase of gaining, because obviously we can't keep gaining forever. There is a point where it does start to become maybe a bit unproductive, or you just don't need to get too heavy. So that's really one of the main things that we got from competing last year. My stage weight was 105 pounds at the very end. I'm now 129 pounds. And realistically, we know now in this off season that I probably don't need to get as heavy as I have done in previous off seasons, where I definitely benefited from getting that heavy in order to really build and put on a big baseline amount of muscle tissue, particularly when I was making that jump up from bikini to then competing in figure as I did last year. I still need to put on a lot of muscle, I'm not silly, but I probably don't need to get to points that in reality would definitely now be unproductive, you know, so we can keep things a bit more productive without necessarily getting there. But anyway, we are at the end of this specific phase, so I thought it would be helpful and insightful to see what a full day of eating is looking like at this point in time. My current daily macros are 305 grams of carbs, 55 grams of fat, and 190 grams of protein. This is obviously what I'm eating to still gain muscle. I'm still gaining at a very, very slow and steady rate of gain. As I said, I am a light female, fairly short. For those interested, I am 4'10", so I don't need a ridiculous amount of food in order to grow. I just need whatever is needed to see the rate of gain that I need to see. But we're going to take you through a day of eating today. It is now currently 8 AM. It is the 29th of April. It's a training day today. I've got upper
So I'll maybe show you a little bit of the session, but the main thing is obviously the food, which is what people like to see. So far this morning, I have done a really decent amount of work. I usually start my first work block at 5:30, so I came down, had a coffee, sorted out the house. I put on my rice actually this morning because I always put my rice on first thing. And then I've just done some work. So I've done some checking feedback, I've done some coaching inquiry responses, I've done a podcast. And now it is time to prepare meal number 1. And one thing that I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna guide you through how I actually make my meals, how I prepare my food for the day, because when I have done these videos before and food videos, people often ask me to show a little bit more about how I actually prepare my food. So I will make sure to do that so that you can actually see how I lay my food out, how I make things actually efficient, because a big thing for me is that I am busy throughout the day and I also don't like to spend hours prepping meals. You should not have to spend a really long amount of time prepping food, and for a lot of people, when they're in growing phases, if they're making their meals really difficult to make and it's taking loads of time, then they just don't want to eat and their appetite sucks more. So making things efficient is very, very important. So I start my making meal number 1 just about now, but when I make this meal, I also make my meal 2, so my pre-workout meal, and I also prepare my intra, and then after I eat this meal, I will also prepare my post-workout meal as well, so that I actually usually I'll stack making meals. So I'll never just make one meal at a time. I'll usually stack a couple of meals together so that things can be a little bit more efficient. So for my pre-workout meal, as I mentioned, I put my rice on this morning. So that's already done in the rice cooker. This is where having tools like rice cookers and air fryers are absolutely essential to making your meal prep super easy. If I did not have my rice cooker, if I did not have my air fryer, I genuinely can't imagine how long it would take to make so many meals, because rather than just literally putting the food on and then leaving it, you have to hover over the pan and watch it, and it's just frustrating. So rice is already on, and then I cook my chicken now, and then I also do my veg. I do just put that in a pan. It's pretty easy, it doesn't take too long. So for the pre-workout meal, I've got 150 grams of chicken, which is going to go in the grill here. And so I put this all on first before I make my meal 1, and usually while Asia is making his eggs. For my chicken personally, I like to add a little bit of this Nando's sauce, and then I do a little bit of pepper on that as well, because I don't like or want to have my chicken or my meats plain and boring, because they do not have to be. You can use little sauces, marinades, seasonings that are pretty low in calorie, and as long as you keep them the same, it's going to be absolutely fine. Now, if you're trying to lose body fat and you are putting on sauces and condiments that are probably worth about hundreds and hundreds of calories, that's maybe a little bit of a problem if you are then not seeing the body fat loss that you need to see, and or you're having to pull a lot of food from other parts of your diet in order to compensate for having condiments in, and then you're really hungry. That's not very smart. But especially in gaining phase, you're probably going to be perfectly fine. So we've got 150 grams of chicken here. This is going to go into the grill. We just have this Ninja grill. We've honestly had this for ages. It does grill, it does air crisp, roast, dehydrate, break. I mean, to be honest, we literally just use the grill and then the air crisp for potatoes. That's about it. But it is honestly an absolute game changer. So chicken shall go in here. That literally takes 10 minutes. My rice is over here. My face track has gone off. So here is my rice. This has been in the rice cooker this morning, cooked to perfection. I'll put this all in this bowl, and once it's all cooked and finished, and then that goes in the fridge so that it's prepared in advance. And another reason, hello, you can say hello. Oh. Another reason why it's important to prepare these meals in advance at the moment is because it's warm. It's very warm, and to be fair, I always like my meals cold anyway, but especially in this temperature, there's no chance that I'm having a hot meal, because I would be very flustered. That's the only annoying thing about when you get heavy, is that you get quite hot and then sometimes you don't want to eat. So having cold meals can be something that definitely really helps you throughout these times to make sure that you do still get all the food in that you need to get.
Just to talk through the preparation procedure for my meal one, which is pretty simple. As I mentioned before, this is why I like to have this meal as well, because it's so easy. I firstly do always weigh out my salt in advance of the day. This is something that I personally like to keep consistent. It takes literally like 2 seconds to just weigh out my salt in a mug in advance of the day. Then I can spread that evenly across the meals, and then I always know it's consistent and it's not having to fluctuate too much on a day by day, which is important if you want to regulate your salt intake and make sure that your body weight also doesn't fluctuate too much. And then I go into making my meal one, which is just the whey in the mug here, add a little bit of water, mix that into a nice little paste that then I can pour on top of my berries, and then just add my almond butter, add my cinnamon on top, and then that's just a nice cold sweet dish for me to have in the morning for my meal one, and I will talk you through that one now.
All right, so meal number one, I have got very similar to my normal first meal that I've always had. I've got 200 grams of frozen raspberries, 40 grams of whey, and I have now actually got 20 grams of almond butter with this meal. So this was basically just to add a little bit of fats in with my first meal, spread my fats out a little bit more across the day now that my fats are just a little bit higher, rather than having them like crammed into my later meals and then that upsetting my digestion, just spreading them out a little bit more over the day. I still like to always keep my first meal carb free, unless I'm literally this is the only instance I've ever had carbs in my first meal, would be in like peak week or in high days, and I have to have carbs in my first meal. I just prefer not to have carbs there.
Fruits are carbs though, babe. Someone might be picky and say,
carbs.
oh, there's carbs in raspberry.
All right, well,
you like your meal one to be low carb.
All right, yeah, AJ's correct me. Obviously, I do have the carbs from the raspberries, but I'm not having oats or bagels or cream of rice. I like to keep it low carb. So yes, there are some carbohydrates available purely through the form of fruit. If I was to do a savoury option, I'd have some carbs through the form of vegetables, because you should still have some vegetables with every single meal, or fruit. But yeah, I don't like to have too many carbs in my first meal, especially when I am heavier. And this is a weird one, because some people will say, oh, you should put maybe more meals and spread them out across the day with having more carbs in the first meal as your food gets higher. But for me, because my food never has to get like stupidly high, I actually find that it helps my appetite and my digestion more by not having a really big first meal. So first meal here, we're going to sit and eat this while we watch a little bit of something on the relatively large TV that we have situated in our kitchen behind us. This actually used to be in the living room, didn't it? Yeah, it used to be in the living room. And then AJ, I think in your last prep, decided that he wanted an even bigger TV in the living room. So we swapped out that TV that was in the living room, brought in here, and then put a bigger one in the living room. But
it works well though, because it brings us away from our phones and our laptops.
So. Yeah, it definitely does. It does. Did we even have a TV in here before?
No, never.
Oh wow.
That's why, like, when if we watch something, we'd have to watch on our like laptops or whatever, and it would just feel like we'd never leave the laptop.
Yeah, right. Well, anyway, here we go. Meal number one. Catch you all probably at meal number two.
Very quickly, I wanted to just show the preparation of my post-workout meal, because I'm now making that after meal one. So meal one is done and dusted. My pre-workout meal, as you've just seen, I have prepared this all up in the bowl. So chicken, rice, veggies, all done here. Once this has cooled, do not put hot rice in the fridge. Once this is cooled, this will go in the fridge, and then that will cool properly before I have my pre-meal in a couple of hours. And now I just get my post ready. Now I do have fish with my post for my protein, so you'll see that when I get back from the gym. But I have cream of rice as one of my main carb sources for this meal. So I personally like to use the Trained by JP cream of rice. It's my absolute favourite.
I've tried others, and honestly, like, they just taste like sand. They just taste like sand, I'm not gonna lie. So this one in this flavour is actually, at the moment, probably my favourite. I like this and the vanilla one. I'm showing you this because people often ask, as I say, exactly how I make my meals, and I want to try and walk you through that in more detail. And I know it's actually not always that simple when it comes to making cream of rice and oats, so having a bit of a walk through does help. So 475 grams, personally I like to do 325 mils. Obviously if you want it a little bit lower volume, you could do less, you could do more, but it will just taste like water and it won't cook very well. So the way that I like to do this is I will do like small amounts of water, mix it all in so I make sure it's all fully mixed first. And then I'll add the rest, I'll put it in the microwave, and I personally do intervals. So I will do a minute and a half, and then I will basically do minutes or 30 seconds, taking it out, stirring it and cooking it basically until it is at the consistency that I do like to have it. And I personally like to do the microwave for my cream of rice or oats. You could obviously use a kettle, or you could even do it on the hob, but for the way that they cook, for me, I personally would always go for the microwave. So mix these all up, they go in there, and then I'll let this cool, and then this will go into the fridge for later as well. Alright, it's now 10:30. It's time to fully prepare the pre-workout meal. So as simple as literally getting it out of the fridge, which is nice because it means I don't have to do anything else. I can finish off my work jobs, which I've just been working on a very exciting project that I have got coming soon, which I'm really, really excited to talk about, but can't speak about it just yet. So finished those bits of work, now getting the meal out. I do actually pair this with, this is the preparation aspect. I put a little bit of this teriyaki, which is literally like my favourite teriyaki ever. It's just a little bit of a marinade, so for like a 10 ml serving, which is usually about what I use, it's 9 calories, so it's not very much. And then I usually do a little bit of this G Hughes sugar-free barbecue, which is absolutely incredible. So for this, 30 grams is 10 calories. These are just the little bits that I literally put on this meal, and then we'll pair this with a little bit of kimchi. This one is definitely the nicest flavour, so it's from the Cultured Collective, and this is a turmeric and ginger variety, and it's incredible. It's a little bit spicy, but if you don't mind a little bit of spice, it's definitely very nice. So I will just make and prepare this, and then I've got to go and figure out what I'm going to wear to train today, which I'll be honest, I'm delaying it because I don't know what I'm going to wear. As many of you know, I'm a tracksuit gal through and through. Don't really enjoy wearing shorts or just like a sports bra or anything to train in. Not that there's anything wrong with it, and one thing I've definitely learned like over the years is I don't hate doing that because, you know, like I feel insecure in my physique or anything like that, genuinely. It's honestly just the fact that I feel comfortable and strong when I'm in a tracksuit. So like, especially today, I have dumbbell presses, and for me, when I dumbbell press, I always wear, and this is the same thing with like, I think I spoke about this in my last video, it's like habits. So I always wear like the same thing when I train because it's like my uniform. So I always wear my Atomics pants, and I wear my MBW hoodie. Now, I'm not entirely sure I'm going to be able to pull that off today, so I'm going to have to compromise one or the other. I'm either going to have to compromise the hoodie, the pants. I'm trying to decide which one I'm going to be able to compromise. See, I like wearing a hoodie because it gives me like extra power, I feel safer. It's the same reason why I like to wear like a tracksuit when I RDL and things like that, because I feel like I have armour on my body, which I know it's in my head, but like, even still, it's in my head, and it allows me to then create better outcomes within training. Like, just because something is in your head doesn't necessarily mean it's not real. So that's my terrible Harry Potter reference. So yeah, I'm delaying this process because I'm dreading going upstairs and getting changed and essentially huffing and puffing, which is one of AJ's most disliked traits that I do have when it gets hot. I really did not experience this at all last year because through this entire time, when it was like relatively hot last year, I was pretty lean. So I genuinely don't remember getting hot at all. I don't really think we had that hot of a year last year anyway. But in which way I'll have to find a solution. So just getting the final bits of this ready to actually talk you through the meal, because I realised I've not done that. We got 100 grams of rice. We have 150 grams of chicken. We have 150 grams of mixed vegetables. And then I will also do 25 grams of dark chocolate with this meal item. So that's this portion of the meal. And then I've started recently having these little parcels of dark chocolate that we got from Aldi, which are actually very cute. So this is why I'm having 25 grams here, because I moved some of my macros around a little bit for that. So yeah, that is the pre-workout meal. And then we'll head to the gym. Too early in the year to have weather like this. Well, I mean, it's May, isn't it?
I love it, babe. You're in a different situation to me.
Yeah,
it's going to be like hot until Saturday, and then Sunday's going to be literally 10 degrees.
I remember this time last year when we went to Brands, it was really hot.
Yeah, it was bashing.
And I was like dying out in the heat. And that's why we were so happy to stay in the hotel, because we had aircon.
I'm here to train pull, which is going to be some workarounds to make, but anyway, I just tweaked my iliopsoas pretty good, so hip flexor, and basically the iliopsoas has a major...
Guys, I am about to head to the gym. I've got with me, as usual, my blow up. I have not, however, got a coffee because with the temperature, I decided I'm going to go to Starbucks and treat myself to get a cold brew or an iced Americano if they've not got cold brew, because I just don't think I could face having a hot coffee today. I think I would probably implode or faint, maybe one or the other. In case anyone was wondering, I'm not very good with the heat either. That's also the problem. I think because I am naturally very, very, very fair. Like, even as you look at me now, like, I look pale. I've got 2 layers of fake tan on right now. I've done 2 layers of fake tan. I don't know how I'm still so pale. But essentially, I'm very fair. I'm not very adapted to the heat or the sun. When I was a child, my mum actually, like, kept me out of the sun, like, constantly. I used to sit in... I'm gonna have to find some pictures, but I used to, wear like a full swimsuit. Like, as a child, it would be like a full all-in-one suit with a matching hat. I also would sit, when I go in the pool, I would be in like a paddling, what do you even call it? Like one of those little things that you sit in the pool, and it would have a massive umbrella over it as well, so that the sun would never come in my vicinity. So that's kind of where we're at. So I don't think I've ever really got very well adapted to the heat or the sun, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I actually can't really go in the sun anyway, because my skin is not really allowed to go in the sun. And to be fair, like, it's not necessarily the best thing for you anyway, so it's not the end of the world. But moral of the story is basically I'm not adapted for this weather. I don't love it. I like the sunshine, but the heat, not for me. So we're going to go get a cold brew. I've got my intra here. I actually prepared this on my last training day, but I forgot to take it to the gym. So this was already prepared, otherwise I would have prepared it this morning. We've got 25 grams of cyclic dextrin, so 25 grams of carbs. I have 5 grams of creatine, so I put my creatine in here. And then I have also got 1 serving of EAAs, so I'll have that during my session. That is nice and cold, which is good. We'll go get the cold brew now, head to the gym, and then I will catch you after training.
Yeah.
Hi, do you do cold brew by any chance, or do you go... Oh, amazing. Get a large cold brew, please, with sugar-free vanilla syrup.
Yeah.
That's everything, thank you.
Perfect. How's on now?
Thank you. Thank you. All right then guys, that is the session finished. Our session today was very, very good. This is obviously like a full day of eating video, so I'm not going to show you too much of the training because you've seen a lot of my training. But no, it was a good session, honestly. To say how hot it is, I managed to do a very good job and progress most of the session, which I'm really, really, really happy with. I'll admit as well, like, I'm at a point where I'm basically due my cycle any moment. So when you are in that stage, I'm sure that most of my viewers, because the majority of my audience is female, will be able to relate that you don't always feel tremendous. And then you put, oh, there's AJ. Hello. I don't know if you can see him. He's in there. Oh, he's blowing me a kiss. Oh, okay. That's cute. Basically, when you're doing your cycle, you don't feel great. So it can heighten a lot of things. Like if you're already feeling hot or stressed or whatever it may be, it can just kind of like highlight all of those issues, which is never fun. I'm just about to head home now. It is currently 3 p.m. So it's 3 p.m. I'll be home by about 3:30. It's about half an hour to get home, especially on a busy day. So we'll be home at about 3:30. I will have my post at about 4. And then I have a consultation call this evening at 5, which I'm really, really looking forward to. Thankfully, after like an upper day, I'm a little bit more cognitively focused. But to be honest, this is why I like my current training setup. So I train after 2 meals. I train at around like 12 to half 12. And I do pretty much I do most of my work in the morning. I usually just in the evening will save that for like little jobs, doing like social media, doing any content stuff that I need to do, and obviously having some consultation calls in the evening, because of course a lot of people who are like working 9 to 5, they need to have that availability afterwards. So I always enjoy having those, because it's always nice to just have a little bit of a chat with new prospective clients and just talk a little bit about how I can help them achieve their goals. And I really, really, really enjoy those calls. They're a lot of fun. I thought that whilst I'm on my way home, I wanted to have a little bit of a chat to talk about intuitive eating. I was just having a conversation with one of my clients about intuitive eating, and like, in my opinion, intuitive eating it's less to do with just eating whatever you want when you want, and it's more to do with being able to apply your knowledge and being able to apply habits that you've built over years very, very naturally into your daily routine, rather than having to think about them so intensely as such on like a daily basis, or like consistently with every single meal have to think about exactly what you want to eat or measuring things out, because you've done it for so long. So like, for example, I've definitely had like a few days where I've quote unquote intuitively ate, but those days of intuitively eating look very, very, very similar to what a normal day of eating looks like. I think it's where, a lot of people, maybe if they're post-show or, they're very, very new to tracking their food or whatever it may be, think, oh, I'm going to intuitively eat. And the reality is that, one, you're maybe in a position where hormonally your hunger signaling and your satiety signaling is not in a spot for you to be able to actually trust that signaling and still hit or manage your nutrition in the way that is actually necessary or going to give you the best possible outcomes. For example, you will very likely overconsume on calories, or maybe underconsume on calories. You might go for very, very highly palatable foods, or you might go for very low volume, low quality foods that are maybe not the best thing for you. So is that a good form of intuitive eating? Like, definitely not. I don't think that intuitive eating is, like I say, just eating whatever you want whenever you want. Intuitive eating is something that people who have developed those habits over years, most likely, are able to apply them into their day-to-day without necessarily thinking about them. And this is exactly why education and knowledge and skills and all of these things are built, is so that we can learn how to manage our nutrition better. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to need that application, like, we have this application so that we can learn how to do things better. And like, a lot of things, if you think about acting on our instinct, are not always necessarily what we actually need or what is best for us, but it's what our body is maybe trying to do in order to protect us, more than anything. I think that's generally where a lot of people who have been, bodybuilding for really long periods of time after they finish bodybuilding are able to manage their food so incredibly well, because they've spent so long being in such a fantastic routine, knowing what it looks like to measure out, appropriate portions of food, and understanding what it feels like to maybe meet their calorie balance or being under or over their calorie balance to be at maintenance. And as a result, they can then manage that so well when it comes to maybe a time or days or whatever it may be, where they don't necessarily need to follow an exact meal plan anymore. Essentially, don't think that it's a bad thing if you have to have some intent of how you do things, especially on social media. I think there's a lot of bashing around, I don't know, like having boundaries, having rules, having limits. And it's like, no, these things are good, because I think without limits, without education, without boundaries, like we'd be feral, like we'd be pretty feral and we'd be pretty uncontrollable. Like, it's a good thing to have limits for yourself. It's a good thing to have, boundaries. And I talk about this a lot with clients when it comes to like off-plan eating, for example. Like, you should have boundaries and limits for yourself when it comes to having an off-plan meal, so it doesn't just become an open eating window where you have no boundaries for yourself. Like, there's so many things in life where we have boundaries, we have limits, we have rules in order to keep things in order, or in order to help us to manage our health better, or to keep the world a relatively, safe space, or whatever it may be. So don't be afraid of rules, don't be afraid of boundaries, don't be afraid of measurements. That's really, really not necessarily a bad thing. That's just my little bit of post-workout chat, I suppose, to talk about more the nutrition side of things, considering we are doing a full day eating. Because I know that maybe when I share a lot of these things, particularly when people look at my channel, it's very easy to also look from the outside in and think that I've maybe got my shit together, or maybe you don't think that. I would definitely say, my relationship with food is in a really good spot, and my general understanding of the process and ability to manage the process and my routine is in such a wonderful space. But I've been doing this for a really long time. I have been bodybuilding for a long time, but I've also been working on my relationship with food for a really long time, my education around food for a really long time. I haven't spoken about this a huge amount on the channel, but growing up, I did have, a really quite bad eating disorder. And that was something that I really struggled with. So that started for me from the age of about 11. And I genuinely never thought that I was going to be able to recover from it at the time. There was definitely a lot going on in my life, but because I came off the back of that and I was so determined to look after my body and take care of my body, it was something that I've worked really hard on. And it's kind of how I ended up going down this route of bodybuilding, not to replace my eating disordered habits with something else as an excuse, which is unfortunately something that a lot of people seem to think is the narrative. And I will admit that I think for some people, when they go directly from ED recovery into bodybuilding without maybe spending some time really recovering first, that can be the case. But for me, it was more so a way of, after I'd recovered and I'd spent some time being at a healthy body weight, I was like, I really, really want to know how I can take care of my body. How can I actually maximize my body in a good way? And that's why I fell in love with training. That's why I fell in love with bodybuilding, because my mindset beforehand had been to very much diminish myself. It had been all about how can I make myself as small as possible? How can I, basically not take care of myself? Because at the time I didn't really feel like I was worthy of it. There's obviously a lot going into it. I'm not going to give you guys a therapy session right now. But that's why, bodybuilding became so important to me. But it's taken me a long time to get to where I am now. So when I talk about things like intuitive eating and having a good relationship with food, etc., these are all things that I worked really hard on, and I worked really hard on them also before I started competing. So I did not start competing immediately off the back of having those issues. It was, you know, significantly further down the line when I got into bodybuilding, and I'd been through a few fat loss phases and growing phases, knowing that I was in a good place, you know, mentally and physically, to work towards that kind of specific goal, which I think is very important. That's something that I'll always like screen with clients as well, because it's really not just about like how much muscle have you got, can you know, tick your boxes and just get it done. It's like, is this a good thing for you to do from a mental health standpoint and with where everything is at? I know I've gone like so off tangent here, and this is a full day of eating, and I've just basically rambled for 12 minutes now about just loads of random things. So I'm going to go back now. I'm going to put my post-workout meal on, which I'll probably overlay the footage now. So what I'm going to be having is, I'll be having 200 grams of basa fillets, which I'm really enjoying. I'm having these because AJ started having them, and to be honest, we actually just needed to use some of the basa that I bought. So I started having it. I was like, oh my God, this is actually delicious. And I do think that because it's a very like light protein source, it's actually quite nice to have when you're eating a bit more food. It doesn't feel too like, stodgy is obviously not the right word for protein, but you know when you can kind of get like the ick of something and it just feels a bit heavy. Like fish is obviously so nice because it doesn't go like that, and basa is nice because it's not a fishy fish. And what I mean by that is it's not like stinky. So we've got basa, we've got salad, we've got a little bit of kimchi again, and then I will do 75 grams of cream of rice. So you saw me make that earlier, and I'll have that with a little bit of banana. That's 90 grams of banana that I have with that. And then I have a little bit of sourdough and a touch of jam, which is literally like 5 grams of jam I have with this sourdough. And that's just because I like sourdough, to be honest, and I like to break up my carbs in my post-workout meal. And that's honestly just variety. You know, you can have food in your diet that you enjoy. That's all good. Just make sure it's food that digests well. I would make sure that, like, you know, the majority of your diet is whole foods. I find that obviously I feel a million times better, but especially when I'm in off season, I'm eating a lot of food. If I start eating, honestly, just crap food, like really poor quality food, very highly processed food, I feel terrible and my appetite suffers considerably. Because I think, one, you're almost like saying to yourself, like, oh, I need to lean on these foods because my appetite sucks. As soon as you create that narrative, it's very hard to pull your appetite back. But I genuinely believe that when you do have a lot of those foods, like, you're going to struggle a lot more to have like well managed blood glucose, and your insulin sensitivity is probably going to start to suffer quite a lot, you know, especially if you're having like really, like, as I say, highly processed foods or very high sugar foods, and like a lot of like cereals or like really high sugar granolas, and like a lot of things like honey and cereal bars or Pop-Tarts, like things like that. You're going to find that your blood glucose is very like unstable. So yeah, post-workout here, guys, you'll be seeing this now. And then I will catch you all at meal number 5, which I will actually prepare after my post-workout meal.
We're both about to have our last meal. It's 20 to 7, which is a good day. Which is wind down time. It's been a great day. We both had great sessions. It's been a lovely day of work outside of that. I had a lovely call this evening. Weather amazing. Weather's been amazing. Lots to be grateful.
Love it.
Lots to be grateful for. Lots to be very happy about. Inclusive of my last meal, which is always something I'm very grateful for. So I prepared this earlier, as I said, after my post-workout meal. I've got 100 grams in a mixture of oats and cream of rice, 40 grams of the carrot cake, where again, because as I mentioned in my last video, that is literally goated. Are you still having that? No. Oh, well, I'm having it.
I just stick to only isolates.
Okay, well, I don't have to just have the isolates. I'm having that. It's tremendous. And then that will be paired with some raspberries, 20 grams of cashew butter, which, look at this, we've just purchased some. Oh, wow. We've purchased it, well, AJ's purchased a massive kilo of cashew butter, because we're obviously just going through those little ones so fast. So hopefully this will be a more longer lasting option. What's your favourite nut butter? I'd like to know. Below. Yeah, comment below. If you made it to the end, comment below what your favourite nut butter is. Mine is definitely cashew.
What's yours?
Cashew.
Yeah.
It's always been cashew.
It used to be almond.
Yep.
But now it's cashew all the way. Cashew's incredible. If you've not tried cashew, you need to try cashew. So 20 grams of cashew butter, cinnamon, salt, and 10 grams of dark chocolate, and that is the final meal. And I like to always have oats as my last meal because I just feel like it's a very comfort meal. Do you know what I mean? End of the day, I like something sweet, and we both have oats. I can't do a different meal to AJ at the end of the day. I can throughout the rest of the day, but if it's the end of the day, I get FOMO, because that's our chill time that we have together, which is so important, is at the end of the day, because sleep is important to us, stress management is important. It's now 20 to 7, we go to sleep at 8. So we spend an hour to an hour and a half with like last meal, switching off, letting the food digest, and then going to bed. So this is our chill time. So I always think oats are fitting for like winding down end of the day. So that will be the last meal, and that will summarise the full day of foods. Isn't that tremendous? Oh, nice. Anything you'd like to add, Coach?
No. For
AJ,
me, I'm done.
AJ has no words. AJ has no words. So I hope you've enjoyed my full day of eating. My food has not really changed very much, simply because it has not needed to. It's just like anyone who watched any of my prep videos, you will know that my food did not change that much. Well, it didn't change actually at all throughout my life, apart from at the end when we actually brought my food up. My deficit food was literally the same throughout, and I'm quite like that on both ends of the spectrum. So like I don't often need like a lot of changes in order to go in one direction for another. Like put me in a surplus, that'll do the job for a good period of time. Put me in a deficit, that'll do the job for the period of time. I don't have a very like adaptive metabolism as such, on the way up or the way down, which is quite good. And I'm also like, if you're consistent, it's rare that you're going to need to make too many changes. You know, my output doesn't really change too much. My daily routine is the same. So that's basically why things have stayed the exact same. You don't need to just keep putting more food in when you're growing if your rate of gain is adequate. And that's where a lot of people go wrong, and then they just get unnecessarily soft or add on too much body weight that they don't need to, and then you see diminishing returns. And this growing phase for me, although it's been like a post-show gaining phase, which is always going to come with quite a lot of recovery, it's still been, I would say, probably one of the most productive phases of gaining that I've had, where rate of gain's been really good, body comp's been good, training's been amazing, especially for my body weight. So yeah, couldn't be happier. I'm sure I'll do another video to like cap off this gaining phase before I do eventually diet. But for now, we shall eat the last meal, wrap up the day there. Thank you so much for watching. If you have made it to the end, as always, I appreciate all the support, millions. If you've enjoyed the video, do make sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below. And I will see you all hopefully in the next one.